Hey, what's going on, guys? On this episode, we're going to be talking about 10 exercises to crush an abs workout at home.
All right, guys, so doing sit ups at home is pretty boring, but there are some ways that are way more effective to just get us in gear and get our abs in gear. So, we're going to go through a couple ab exercises that you can do at home. You can add weight, but you don't need to get a really good workout in.
Your core is one of those things that, if neglected, it can certainly cause injuries in the future, but it can also certainly lead to instability and lack of balance and all of those things as well. So, abs isn't necessarily directly correlated to just that shredded six pack. A strong core is the foundation of all the movements that you're going to end up doing in the future.
Yeah, abs are not about six packs. Training your abs it'll help to define some of that muscle, but really that boils down to nutrition. So if you're in for just an ab workout for strengthening those abs, which can help you with majorly with posture, with just overall stability and confidence, these are the exercises you should add to your routine. So, for these aren't just specific exercises, they all have things that we would work on that sit-ups don't necessarily, kind of help us with. They are more of a very static thing. They only help with a certain area of our abs. They're not helping us in real life circumstances. So if you think about it, when are you actually doing a sit-up on a regular basis, like in your real life?
Well, I guess I could be devil's advocate there. I'd say a lot more than not. The full form of a sit up, no, you're not doing that all the time. But certainly the same muscles that you use to get up off the couch, get up out of bed, can all kind of be a sit up.
Sure. But, when we're working our abs, we don't want to just get up out of bed. We want to be able to support our spines when we're working a 9 to 5 job. We want to be able to, when we're balancing on an unstable surface, maybe that's just going for a hike or, anything that causes us to be a little bit wobbly. That's not all in our legs, that's also in our abs. So the first thing that we could try is a V up. So that helps with balance, but it also gives us a full range of our abs. So we're not just using our upper abs to do a sit up. We're using all of our abs to not just get up into a V position, but also to, hold us there and not trip over ourselves and rock side to side and, get stuck on the ground.
Yeah, keep in mind here, guys. So a lot of what we're going to be doing in a workout like this is going to be focused on the actual exercise itself will be seemingly focusing on the front of our abs, but keep in mind, like, our abdominals are in the front, or the anterior, the front of us, but your core as a whole is that entire rib cage section, including your back as well. So keep in mind that when you do all of these things, when we say squeeze your core, squeeze your abs, you're thinking about straightening out your spine so that you're actually squeezing both your back and your abs. So even if we're doing a V-tuck, which seemingly it seems like we're just kind of crunching or doing that, the straighter we can keep our spine, the more our entire core is going to work.
Yeah, whatever you practice in the gym, you're going to have in real life. So if you're practicing with bad form and you're practicing with a hunched up back, doing sit ups in your living room, you're going to sit up that way. So a lot of these focus on keeping a straight back while we're engaging our core, which is ideally how we want to have good posture and just go about our daily lives.
Mm-hmm.
So an easier version of this would be to, instead of sitting in a full V sit, you could do tuck-ins. So like what Matt mentioned, just bending your knees to get in. This is still using your balance. It's just evening you out a little bit more. So if you don't have quite as strong lower and upper abs, you can still get into a balanced position where you're engaging your core.
Yeah, and keep in mind, too, that even when you're performing these exercises, as we allude to with really everything, all of these exercises can be used in everyday life. So even though we're not necessarily on the floor doing a tuck hold, when you rotate that position and you think about in that same position bending down, well, now you're either tying your shoe or you're bringing your knee up to, put your pants on or something like that. So all of those positions can be simulated to the actual real life movements.
Yeah, or lifting furniture. You just want to have a tight core so that you're supporting your spine. I mean, your spine is supported on all sides. So a lot of these exercises also work on, especially that work on stability, are also working your obliques and your back muscles so that we're supporting all the way around. Our core is not just, like what Matt said, the front of us. It is, our core all the way back, belly buttons to spines. So the other thing that we could do, the next exercise, would be a hollow hold. So this is a little different from a V-sit where we're just balancing on our butts. We're going to open that V a little bit more and almost be lying completely flat on our backs, and this just holding this position. So the important things to note are keeping your shoulder blades up off the ground and your feet, and that's pretty much it. The rest of your back should stay flat on the floor. And this is a very challenging position, so if you need to, you can bend your knees. But this really teaches us what muscles need to be engaged to keep our backs completely straight. So this is having gravity work kind of against us in a way it wouldn't in real life, but practicing it in a little bit more of a difficult manner in the gym is going to make it a lot easier to do it when you're sitting at your desk.
And quick disclaimer, just like with anything, doing all of these exercises once is not going to make your core stronger. It'll certainly help. But think about all of these things as just one extra exercise at the end of your workout that you can implement a little bit later. So I would much rather you perform one of these exercises maybe for a set of 20 to really get the movement rather than doing only 2 or 3 reps and then doing every single exercise on this exercise at 10. Like, these are more meant as a resource so you can implement them in your next workout.
Yeah, create your own workout. But, these kind of exercises it's kind of a well-roundedness in there. So if you're doing more of a stability workout, include some of these stable holds for like a V-sit or some of the other ones we'll get to where a little more stability is involved. And you can work it into the theme of your workout as well. Abs is a lot about control. So if you'll see gymnasts, they know how to get in and out of positions that are squeezing their abs. And the more that they can slow that movement down and not cheat it by using momentum to get up into a sit-up or a crunch, and they're just using their abs, contracting their abs to get into that stable position, that's where you're really going to see improvement. It's going to be harder, for sure, but you're going to see the results a lot faster.
Yeah, and I mean, that's in any sport. It really doesn't matter, whether you're a gymnast or a baseball player or a swimmer. The best athletes in the world often have a lot of control of their core. And abs are definitely, they go into play that. But baseball sometimes doesn't get all the credit because, baseball players typically wear baggier clothes. The jersey just is that. And not all baseball players have six packs like a gymnast or a football player might have. But what they all have are very, very, very strong cores. It is just a twisting, rotational type sport where if you have a weak core, it doesn't work, and much like gymnastics in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, the same way in any kind of sport, if you're throwing the ball and your abs are not squeezed, you don't have that, kind of tripod where you're supposed to start out and throw the ball. It's not going to go where you want to go. And just like gymnastics, you're not going to go where you want to go if you're not squeezed in your core. So another thing you can add to the third way that you can spice up your routine for abs at home is just adding some cardio to your abs. So ab workouts don't just have to be specific ab workouts. You don't have to be just sitting on the floor and engaging your abs, holding it, or doing a bunch of sit-ups. You can engage your core. You should be engaging your core in every exercise because you're supporting your spine. That helps you lift heavier weights without injury. And especially when you start moving through quicker motions, such as doing mountain climbers. It pushes you back into that push-up position and then squeezes your core to bring your knees in. So you have to go through every single motion to both squeeze your core, find a nice hollow position in that push-up, and then keep it moving by finding those perfect positions for your spine and your core. So doing some regular mountain climbers is great, but I would recommend crisscross mountain climbers. So the only difference there is you're on your hands in a push-up position, and you're just going to bring your knee to your opposite elbow instead of straight forward. And this is going to add a little bit of rotation. So it's engaging your obliques more, challenging your balance. And you could go slow if you're a beginner for this because, like I said, the more that you control the motion, the easier it's going to be.
Yeah, in fact, abs, the majority of your movements should be slow and controlled. And then as you're doing your other exercises that are a little bit quicker, you have already trained your abs to engage and to be nice and contracted, so that when you're doing those quicker movements, your abs just naturally kind of follow along. Whereas take your time activating, making sure that your abs are working the right way first, and then move on from there.
Yeah, and if you want to add a variation of stability to your mountain climbers, you can do them on a stability ball. So a stability ball is a great investment for a home workout because
Not just a home workout, just for sitting on it like an office chair.
In general, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a great point. We both have stability balls for
you probably see it in the corner there if you're watching.
For our office chairs because it keeps us upright, so we're not just slumped over and at our desks, which is really, really easy for me because I get in the zone. So if the ball is completely, rolling around, I have to adjust with it. So if you work in an environment where that's allowed, definitely think about investing in a stability ball.
Yeah, and I mean, there's even all sorts of ball chairs, any sort of instability that you can add to your workday or add to anything is always going to be better. That idea of also, I'll add a term, proprioception, being able to stabilize and balance when anything is there. I mean, that's how life is. It's not like you're placing every single pebble exactly so you can stand on that pebble perfectly every time. There's instability in everyday life. So the more you can implement instability into how you train, the much better you're going to be off when all of that instability is just in everyday life.
Yeah. And a personal example, I at one of my former jobs, I had a very squashy rolly chair, and which is very tempting to just sink into. And that was our upgrade. The whole office was very excited to have these squashy chairs from the kind of hard falling apart ones that you couldn't really lean back in. But I noticed since I started using that one, I would get up and be a lot more sore because that chair is designed for you to just sit and kind of vegetate in for 8 hours, which is fine. You don't feel much discomfort when you're sitting there. But as soon as you get up, your body has been sitting in such an unnatural position that it's not ready to go and do the rest of the work you have for the day.
Yeah, I'm going to take a quick tangent right off of that as well. I love my tangents, but especially for you guys that are working from home in this environment, a stability ball is awesome for adding ab exercises, but just simply getting out of your chair or doing like what I like to call ground game or what others call ground game. And all of these exercises can be done from the floor even without a stability ball. But the reality is the more that you get out of comfort, we'll say, the more that you get out of that squishy chair or that couch or anything like that. If you're only watching TV or you're only on your laptop anyway, just get up and try to move around a little bit. That's going to also just help you with your abdominal strength and with your core strength, regardless if you do any of the workouts that you see on, in this article.
Plus, it's going to motivate you more. An object at rest is likely to stay at rest. An object in motion is likely to stay in motion. So if you're getting up throughout the day and just not stepping away from your desk and stepping away from your work, you can just take your laptop onto the ground and do a couple, spreadsheets, whatever you're doing on the ground, and then go back to your desk later. But it just makes it a lot easier to adapt to real life circumstances if you're putting yourself in uncomfortable positions throughout your workday.
As human beings, we were never meant to be comfortable per se. A lot of our technology and everything else that has been evolved throughout the course of time has all been geared towards how we feel, as opposed to just progressing the actual muscle tissue and everything within your body to adjust outwards. Your body has a great ability to make it as comfortable as possible without the need of any comfort from the outside.
Yeah, your body will adjust. It's going to be at first a little bit, it'll take a little getting used to because your body is not used to having to adjust for itself. Usually you just kind of recline the chair back a little farther and then you're good. But actually using your abs to adjust yourself in the correct seating position, that's going to take some adjustment on your part, but it's going to help in the long run because you're going to be, without even thinking about it, without even going to the gym, without even doing a home workout, you are strengthening your abs and your core.
But it's also a good tip too that if your chair can adjust in a bunch of different ways, set a timer for every half hour, 45 minutes, just to adjust the chair in a different way. So rather than, even if you're not using your core as much or you have to sit in that chair, just adjusting that chair every 45 minutes or so makes
Not
a difference
completely
too.
sedentary and
Yeah, for a full 8 hours.
Yeah.
But we obviously realize that some people have to be in their desk all day. But if you can just change it up a little bit, the better you're going to be.
Yeah. And speaking about adjusting, our fourth exercise here is you can do some side plank toe touches. So a side plank in general is a really good exercise to do to get your obliques engaged because you're twisting, you have to keep your hips up. And then when you're reaching through or adjusting your arms in any direction, so say you're doing thread the needles, so you're in a side plank and reaching up underneath of yourself, you have to not only adjust your arm to get through, but you also have to squeeze your abs and adjust. It's not just about holding your abs squeezed, it's about adjusting as your hips go to the side or you start to change where that center of balance is, and now your body has to adjust.
So think also just to clarify, think of your obliques. They're the side muscles. Not your six pack or your abs that are out in front or your back behind. It's the muscles on the side. Think of your obliques as your twisting muscles. So anything that you're either stabilizing from your side or rotating or twisting, that's a lot of obliques. So keep that in mind too. So even if you're not doing one of these exercises, anything that you can add to your workout that involves twisting or stabilizing your core left to right, right to left, that's going to include obliques and certainly work those muscles more than just a regular crunch or even just a plank.
Yeah. And what I like about side planks especially is there is so much room for just making it less stable. So whether you're doing it on a stability ball or whether you're reaching through and underneath yourself, that's a really good one. My favorite is the side plank toe touches. So you're in a side plank. You can be on your elbow or on your hand. Remember, if you're on your hand for any kind of plank, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to stabilize. So just lifting one leg up and like out in front of you and touching it, that's a really good way to not only engage your lower abs when you lift your leg, but also with that stabilization, you're going from a straight line to now you kind of have this triangle effect where you're a little off balance. And then doing that in a series of repetitions, now it's going to be a lot more difficult for your body to maintain that stabilization.
Yeah, another big element to that too is just squeezing your glutes. This whole article, and we'll link it to the description, is geared towards abs, but what we really mean is core. It's really difficult to squeeze your abs and not squeeze your core. And your core includes your glutes, your back, and your abs, and it kind of includes everything. So this is also a really good one. If you're not squeezing your glutes, your hips are going to sink, and it's going to be a lot more difficult to do.
Yeah, our fifth exercise, we have Spider-Man push-ups. So these are different from regular push-ups, and if you are not quite an expert on push-ups, that's okay. These are a great way to ease yourself into push-ups and still maintain proper body form. So instead of doing a regular push-up, before you go down into that push-up, you're going to bring one leg out to the side and then use it for support as you go down into that push-up. And we have videos linked in this article, but just to, for a beginner, this is a really good way to get into not just push-ups, but also using your abs and especially your lower abs to support you as you go down into that push-up position.
Yeah, we're a huge fan of adding variety into your exercises so that you can do the actual exercise later.
Plus, it makes it more fun because you don't want to just do a billion sit-ups in your living room every day for your ab day. If you can do something different each time, and maybe you pick a specific workout that you repeat so you can recognize yourself getting better at it. But switching it up with these kind of exercises that we're listing today, just having a variety in your routine, they're all working different muscles, sort of working stability and working your strength, but overall they're strengthening your core.
Yeah, here's a quick hack as well. Your core can be activated in anything that you do. So anything can be a core exercise. My favorite core exercise is actually a back squat. Because while it's not listed on here as a specific ab exercise in terms of squeezing your core, if you can really control your core, suck in and really create that internal pressure, that is what is ultimately using your core most often. Then you add any sort of load to it. So it could be a bench press, a squat, a deadlift. It could be any of your typical like big lifts. You're still, if you're engaging your core, it's an ab exercise. If you're not, you're going to put your body at jeopardy for injury because you're not stabilizing your spine. So all of these exercises that we have listed can get you into just engaging your core. But just keep in mind that whenever you start to master engaging your core and doing that, your abs, like what we had talked about earlier,
should be happening every time that you're supporting your spine.
And
standing,
you get that
running,
stability ball
lifting.
too. Yeah, you get that stability ball too. Now you're talking about engaging your core then as well. So even when you're sitting in your 9 to 5, you're still doing it.
Yeah. So and speaking of sit-ups, our sixth exercise is doing some single leg sit-ups. So let's spice up that normal sit-up that we often end up leaning in toward our knees. And just a tip for sit-ups in general, when we're doing our sit-ups, we should not aim for going in toward our knees, nose to our knees. We should end up towards the ceiling. So you want to think of it more as if you want to think hands behind your head, then go up towards the ceiling like you're going to kiss the ceiling instead of going in towards your knees. Not only is that going to keep your back straight, but it's also going to engage your core more than just your upper abs. You're going to keep your whole entire abs squeezed to go up to that seated position, and a seated position that you're normally in, not that scrunched up position you'd be in a regular sit-ups.
Yeah, regardless of what exercise you do, this is the overarching point that we want to solidify here is your spine should be as straight as possible
at all times.
At all times. So even if you can't do a single leg sit up yet, and your range of motion just isn't there, your abs just aren't. Your core doesn't quite have the strength.
Yeah.
Above anything, keep that spine straight. Keep that core engaged the entire time. Eventually, you can fight for height or you can fight for stability and make things a little bit better for you. But the overarching theme here is to make sure that spine is straight.
Yeah.
So as Sarah explained some of these things, some of you might be like, there's no way I can do that yet. But just keep in mind that the first step is just keeping your spine straight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And a lot of people ask me, especially I've had friends that say, well, how often do you train abs? Coming from a gymnast background and now doing aerial arts, abs is a very important thing in everything that I do. But I really don't train abs specifically very often. It's about 3 times a week, and I do that. I kind of throw it in after I've already done another workout. And I only do about 10 to 15 minutes. Because, like Matt said, you should be training your abs during everything that you do. So if you're doing squats, you're doing lunges, you shouldn't just be having your back kind of be relaxed and not supported while you're doing that. It's another thing to think about, but if you're thinking about it in the gym, you're less likely to have to think about it when you're sitting or standing and fighting for good posture in your real life. So if you're thinking about doing when to implement these ab exercises, don't focus just on abs. If you're just doing ab exercises, it's not going to end up in a six-pack. You're not going to result in, being able to do a million toes to bar. It's a lot more than that. So it's just squeezing your abs in everything that you do, keeping that spine straight in everything that you do.
So it's funny, like as you're saying that, because you still do ab exercises about twice, 3 times a week. I'm going to be honest with you, I don't. A lot of my core, a lot of my ab exercises come from the other exercises that I do. But what I do instead of those particular ab exercises is I test my ab and my core strength with my control. So the thing that I actually find more impressive than anybody with, a shredded 6-pack or anything like that, are actually the people that can do a full vacuum. Which a vacuum is, if you don't know what it is, just look it up. It is essentially squeezing in your abs as tight as possible, so that essentially like between your waist and your back is like nothing. That is complete abdominal control. When someone can do that, that is taking and contracting all of those abs and working all the time. Whereas if you can't quite do that yet, it might even expose some weaknesses or things that you need to work on. So for me,
I can't do it yet, so we're not speaking from experience.
Yeah, no, but I do I view really anything that I do as sort of a test to make sure that I could still do something. So I will admit that I don't train abs or core as much as I probably should, because I'm doing it a lot in other exercises, but I still will do some hanging leg raises or some, side plank with toe touches. I'll still do some of those things just to ensure I still have that stability. But I believe that, abs, especially when you can contract them and you can control them, it's much like riding a bike. Where you might not be doing it all the time, but when you have that complete control and you can activate your abs exactly how you want to each and every time, when you do an ab exercise or when you sit in a chair or when you do something that's strenuous on your abs, they're already working. You don't have to think about it. But getting to that next step, it can be hard.
Well, a lot of these ab exercises, a lot of any ab exercises are more about positioning than anything. So, every exercise that we do, whether it's back squatting or lunging or anything, we should have good positioning to start with. But then after that, it kind of goes off into, well, how much weight can we lift in this position, or how far can we walk holding this amount of weight in this position. But for abs, it's about not only holding that position, finding that position, but then staying in that position. So especially with gymnastics, the reason that the gymnast can get up into a strange position and kind of snap into it without even, if you've watched any training videos, they just kind of snap into position without even really having to think about it, because they're so trained to engage their core, engage their back, that it's second nature. So if it's second nature in the gym, you don't have to be a gymnast, but if you're squeezing your core into that straight back position, being very familiar with what that position is. So if you're doing single leg sit-ups, you're just leaving one foot on the ground, and instead of, reaching up to the ceiling or reaching up towards your knees, you're reaching your arms all the way up to the ceiling while you bring the other leg in. And like I said, there's videos on our article, which we'll link, but this kind of position is very unnatural. It's not something that we find in real life a lot, but it is something that will force us into an awkward position that we will find in real life. So maybe it's not a single leg sit up position, but maybe it's rock climbing, and we have to bring our knee up high to our chest while still squeezing so that we can hold on to the wall. Or maybe it's hiking, so when we're climbing upwards, we're not leaning to the side and straining our back while we stumble up this trail. So you can also assist yourself in this sit-up. So if you use just like for regular sit-ups, you can have someone hold your feet. You can have someone do that as well. If you don't have a partner, you can use a dumbbell to hold your foot down, which is an easier way to do it. It does take away some of the pressure off of the stabilization part of it. So if you're used to sit-ups where your feet are being held down, try it first, just regular old sit-ups without anyone holding your feet. And that's a really good transition into these variations. Another thing that we can do, our seventh exercise here, is training yourself with the instability and some height. So think about doing some wall walks, which is when we're facing a wall in a push-up position, and we just simply lift up one hand, press it into the wall, and then lift up our other hand, press it into the wall. So we have both hands on the wall, and then back down one at a time, back to that push-up position. So in a push-up position, we should already be squeezing our abs, but by walking back up and using our abs to not only hold ourselves in that plank, but using the wall to squeeze ourselves, if we let those abs stop being engaged, we're just going to fall onto our stomachs. So adding some instability, adding a little bit of height or a stability ball or something else that is holding you up is going to challenge your abs even more.
Your abs are not just an ab exercise. So this exercise actually includes your core a lot more than just your abs. If you are pushing up against the wall, you need to have your scaps retracted, which are your shoulder blades back and down. If they're in an awkward position, you're going to start to feel a lot more pain in your shoulders or in your arms or elbows. We want to think about keeping our body straight in any of these exercises. This is also going to aid with lifting overhead. So even though we're sideways and we're pushing into the wall, by training our abs and training our core really on how to stabilize and contract our entire body, then that also is going to aid with anything that we do overhead or even beneath us. Mm-hmm. So think of this exercise more than just your abs. I would actually not necessarily throw your abs out the window on this exercise, but think about your scaps and your upper back more than anything, and in coordination with also then squeezing your abs and your glutes. You're going to find, especially with this one, if you aren't doing one or the other, you're just not going to be able to do the exercise. But extending it the whole way out overhead, and really engaging your scaps, that's a part of your core as well.
Yeah, and if you notice a whole bunch of shifting going on in order to complete the exercise, this is something that you'll notice in your everyday life, or you might not, but it still might be causing some pain or discomfort. So if we're off balance, so we're sitting more on one butt cheek than the other for 8 hours a day, you're going to feel a little bit of pain in your back when you leave work. It's the same thing if we're doing a squat and we come up and our hips are shifting to the right whenever we come up from that squat. It might just look a little funny. It might not even hurt you, but after some time, it's going to cause some imbalance. So doing some ab exercises that keep us in a plank and try to make us manage our shifting is a really good way to practice staying even on both sides of our body. So another way that we can practice, maybe we're not reaching out to touch the wall, but maybe we're just staying in a plank position and then lifting up one hand backwards to touch our hip and then switching to the other side. This is, if you do it fast, a very easy exercise. It doesn't take a whole lot of effort, but if we do it very slow, very controlled, and focus on not letting your hips turn out or shift one way or the other, it suddenly becomes a real exercise on control and keeping that core in one stable position. Even though we only have now one point of support rather than two with our hands.
Yeah, this is a main thing also with other lifts as well. So anytime that you slow something down completely, think of like a 5 count. So 5 down, 5 up, or just simply going in, to a hold or whatever it is, on the wall. The slower that you are, the more that your body can stabilize in every single one of those micro positions. The faster that you do something, especially if you don't have that core activation, your body's still going to be able to do it, but it's going to be able to do it without your core engaged. That's the same thing for a squat, a deadlift, a clean and jerk, whatever. Doing all of those exercises incredibly slow is not only more challenging and fatiguing, but it is also doing a lot more for your stabilization and your core strength. So what I really like doing, even with a lot of these exercises, is, like I said from the beginning, do them incredibly slow, like almost painfully slow. The more that you can do that and control each one of those positions, the better off you're going to be.
Yeah, doing these exercises slowly is a huge thing that we push in gymnastics, because if you can link your mind and your body together to figure out that positioning, it's going to be second nature anytime that you have to do it in real life. And, in gymnastics, that's tumbling. In real life, that's just walking around, having good posture, being able to lift without having your spine, bend under the weight of the pressure. All of this stuff is something that is just practicing good habits, is all, squeezing your core is.
Speaking of good habits too, make sure you're breathing through all of these exercises.
Yes.
that is I see that almost too much, especially when I go to the gym or I'm training with a client, is we have a tendency to link our breath and squeezing our abs in the same light, so that if we're squeezing our abs, it means we're holding our breath. And that's just not the case. You want to keep breathing the whole time. Think about this as well. If in each one of those micro positions that you're in, whether you're going up or down, if you can breathe fully in and fully out, you now own that position, not gravity. Mm-hmm. You're basically telling gravity, you're basically telling an outside force that no matter what position you're in, you don't just do it, you can control it.
You're comfortable in it.
And you're comfortable in it, yeah.
Yeah. And this exercise, number 8, is all for anyone who wants to learn those toes to bar. You just want to be able to, hang from the bar, do a couple toes to bars, and just feel like a beast, because it's not an easy exercise, but it does require more than just ab strength. To do it correctly, you're going to need quad strength to keep your legs straight, and you're also going to need to be able to find that mobility in your hips to be able to lift your legs all the way up. So if you think about it, if you can't sit in a pike position on the floor, that's just sitting with your legs straight out in front of you and together, and kind of lean down to where you would need to be in a toes to bar, you're not going to be able to lift your toes when you're hanging from the bar. So this is a really good way to practice those toes to bar just without having a bar. So if you're at home, you don't have a chin-up bar, try some leg lifts. So all you're going to do is lean back on your elbows, making sure that your lower back is all the way flat on the floor. For every single exercise that you do for abs where you are on your back, there should be absolutely no space between the bottom of your spine and the floor, because that means that your core is engaged. You're not letting that pressure of between your hips and your back, your upper back, to curve your spine. You're engaging your core. So if you walk away from any of your ab exercises and your back is hurting, you're not squeezing your core down to the ground enough. It's not an injury. It's just strain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it could also be a lack of mobility as well. Not necessarily not being able to do that. But think about this exercise as an RDL, or a Romanian deadlift. For those of you that don't know the acronym, this position that you're sitting in, although you're laying on the ground, this is going to enforce that hip hinge and making sure that you're squeezing your core as your legs move back and forth. Now, the only difference between this and the Romanian deadlift is, instead of your legs moving in the ab exercise, now your upper body is moving from your legs, and your legs are straight. So I know that can kind of sound
You're
confusing.
Just twisting yourself on the side.
Yeah, you're twisting yourself. So, but this exercise, don't miss this, is focusing on that hip hinge and making sure that your core is engaged to hinge as opposed to just rounding your back.
So especially in the gym and even at home when there are no witnesses, sometimes and we're all guilty of this, me too. You get a little big-headed and you want to do 25 of an exercise, and that is your goal, and you don't care how you get there. I do that too.
But your body doesn't care how you get there.
Your body's
either.
going to figure it out. But that's when we start to lose form. And that's when we start to not only strain ourselves, but actually we get injured because our bodies are no longer in the correct position. And we're just lifting weights to lift weights. And not only is that going to injure us, but it's going to teach our bodies that, well, if we're lifting weight in real life, we just got to get things down out of the attic. If we don't squeeze our spines, whatever, we can lift it anyway. So it's training bad habits. So especially for leg lifts, now if you don't have quite a strong enough core or enough mobility, then you just need to adapt for this one. So keep your legs as straight as possible, and that's your number one thing. And then keep your lower abs on the floor. This might mean that you can't drop your feet all the way to 2 inches to the floor. Maybe you get 2 feet from the floor and your lower back starts to come up no matter how hard you're squeezing your abs. That's fine. That's as far down as you should go to practice. Eventually, your abs will be stronger so that you can go down farther. But it's a lot easier on your body to start with something that is in good form and then work on training the mobility and the adding weight to that.
I know explaining some of these exercises can sometimes be tough to visualize, especially if you're just listening in your car or listening in the office. Check out our website, fitforthetask.com, /10 exercises, or what is the title?
Crush an abs workout at home.
Crush an abs workout at home. We'll link the actual article in the description, but in that article has videos of Sarah demonstrating all of these exercises. So if you are kind of like, well, what is she talking about? What is he talking about? Check out the website because it'll make it a little bit easier to visualize what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. And another thing while we're talking about mobility is if you're having trouble in that pike position, add that stretch to your daily routine. If you want to get toes to bars and that's your goal, that's an awesome goal. But you need to have not just the strength, but the mobility to get there. So that means doing a pike stretch for 30 seconds, hold it every single morning, and then start doing your leg lifts and work on that. Even challenging the upper range of that motion and not just going up to, where it's comfortable with your toes almost to the ceiling, but think about kind of rolling it backwards so your toes are almost pointing behind you. Now you're putting yourself in a position that's just challenging your mobility before you go all the way back down and challenge your abs to hold your feet up. So an easier version of, a harder version of that exercise would be adding some instability and going side to side. So if you're doing around the worlds, so if you think about keeping your feet together, instead of just dropping them straight down to do a leg lift, think about going around and drawing a circle. And then once you reach the top, draw a circle the other direction. So this challenges our abs on the sides because we're not just dropping straight down. Now we're trying to keep our hips straight without rolling side to side. And we're also keeping our legs straight, which we need for toes to bars. And, just using our abs to balance ourselves out, hold our legs up, and just keep our spine straight. And our 9th exercise is some toe reaches. So this is another exercise that will help us to increase our mobility without even really trying. So you're going to start with just lying on your back with your toes straight up in the air. And all you're going to do is just reach with your arms straight up, not swinging over your head. straight up towards your toes and making sure to lift your shoulder blades up. So it's almost the same positioning as a sit-up where you're sitting up towards the ceiling, but since your legs are straight up in front of you, it's going to limit how high you can get up. So you want to think about just contracting those abs, not swinging to get up high to your toes, but reaching up to your toes. And that's going to, one, bend you closer to a pike position, but it's also going to increase your mobility as you're kind of stretching to reach up to your toes. And why don't you give the explanation of your favorite exercise, your dead bugs?
Dead bugs?
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, dead bugs, you lie on your back, and you're going to be in kind of a dead bug position where your arms are straight up and your legs are bent in, and you very slowly reach back one arm and reach out one leg. And nice and controlled, keeping your lower back on the ground, and then alternating to the other side. This is another exercise that really focuses on control and just, finding that position where it's not quite comfortable, but we're still fighting for, that fully extended position as much as our bodies can handle.
Mainly the X position.
Mm-hmm.
So anytime that you can do opposite hand to opposite foot for any ab exercise or really any workout, whether that be a shoulder raise or a shoulder press balancing on the opposite leg, where you get this opposite effect, the better. Anytime that you can train abs in an X formation where one side is doing the opposite of the other side on the bottom is better. And that's kind of where that dead bug comes in. Or any of these exercises.
And if you think about that in a real life situation where you kind of need to use your abs to even yourself out, think about having a child, perched on your hip, and your body is going to want to lean into it to support the child on your hip, but your abs should be kind of squeezing to even themselves out so that you're not pushing your spine at a strange angle for that support.
Yeah, for those of you single folks who don't ever want to have kids or kids are not your thing, grocery bags. Every single person has carried grocery bags. Now, you wouldn't carry a child at your hip like that, but maybe even a car carrier. Think about how much you sway or put your hip to one side in order to stabilize that load. It doesn't need to be a lot of weight, but anytime that your spine or your core, your hips are kind of out of line, that's where you really start to use your stabilizing muscles to pull you back into that neutral position.
It might be easier in the moment to walk in with your million bags of groceries when you have them all on one side and your hips like out to the side. But, it's really putting your spine at risk in that position. And the more that you do it without training those muscles around it or being able to find that neutral position for your spine, the harder it's going to be on your back in the long run.
But you can also challenge yourself too. I still take in as many groceries as I possibly can, but I'm also actively trying to stabilize and make sure that my hip isn't going one way or another.
Or just make sure you have like 6 bags on each hand.
I like it. I like it to add more stability.
Okay. And then our 10th exercise, which is one of Matt's favorites, is side plank, thread the needle. So what you're going to do is get back into that side plank position that we talked about. You're going to reach up towards the ceiling with your hand that's not supporting you, and then reach all the way underneath you, thinking about putting something in your back pocket, and then reaching back up to that position where your hand is up in the air again. And then repeating it on the other side. So this is a really good thing that we can do at home. You don't need any weight. If you want a visual cue, just think about picking something up underneath of you or behind you and then reaching up to hang it up on top.
Yeah, when the thread the needle, you are threading, like you're picturing your one arm as a needle and you're threading it through your opposite side.
by your armpit.
Yeah, the reason, let me explain why this is one of my favorite exercises is because you are implementing all of the core stability, mobility, and strength all into one exercise. Not only are you going on a side plank and you have to stabilize in that position, but then you also incorporate rotational force, whereas that's your back and then also your obliques. And you're implementing all of that into one exercise. Now you can even incorporate, which I've done before, is the more of a strength in rotation, where instead of just threading the needle through one side, you can add a resistance band that you're pulling from underneath you, that you're really starting to stabilize through. And then, like we said, for any of these things, you can add a stability ball, a BOSU ball, or just some sort of uneven surface to all of these. But this is my favorite. I'm a man of efficiency and I like doing one thing. And if that one thing can help a lot of other things, I do that.
I like variety. So, there are plenty of ways you can spice this up with the resistance band. You can even use a light weight to make sure that you're, because as soon as that weight goes out in front of you, now you're really fighting to hold yourself up while you have this counterbalance coming on the other side.
Yeah. So for all of you efficiency nerds out there, if you're looking for just one exercise to do, not to discredit all of Sarah's other exercises, but
So fine, my abs are stronger. So.
Yeah, this is true. But I like doing this one because it's something not necessarily simple, but it's something that I think of every time as a core. I can do this to supplement a workout or really just do it standalone. And I really like it because it kind of touches on everything.
Yeah, and you can modify it if you're just a beginner, and this is a really challenging stabilizing exercise. So if you're having trouble with that, instead of going from your hand, just drop to your elbow. Another tip is instead of having your feet stacked on top of one another, have them spread apart a little bit, almost like you're walking forward, and then you have a wider base so that when you start twisting, you're not just twisting on one point of contact. You have a kind of a wider base to twist into. If you are a pro at that, you can spice it up and do it on the wall. So just like we said, those wall plank walks where you're walking and pushing against the wall to squeeze your core, you can do the same thing using your feet up on the wall and doing the thread the needle. Because now you're using your feet as the stabilizer, and your arm, especially try to do it with your elbow first, because this is a challenging variation. Now you're reaching underneath and you don't have your feet to support you as much. You really have to squeeze your glutes and your core to hold your hips up in line with your feet.
Yeah, before you do the wall, try it with like a BOSU ball or just like an elevated surface. The wall is something it's very challenging. There's
But you
a
don't
lot of
have to
added
go up high
stability.
either. For any exercise that you're doing on the wall, some of our training has wall handstand walks, but we make it so that anyone can do it. So I might go all the way up to a handstand because that's what I'm used to. But if you're a beginner, just take 2 steps going up the wall and then back down. You're no farther up than you would be on a couple yoga blocks. So, take it at your level, and like we said with the leg lifts, just go as far as you can maintain form. There's no point challenging yourself and going up to the next level, next variation of something if you're going to be doing it incorrectly.
Yeah, name of the game with anything really is find something, find consistency, be able to do it the right way first, and then build up from there. There's no sense in being able to squat 500 pounds if you can't squat 100 pounds the correct way. Your body is a pretty amazing machine, and it will do just about anything that you ask it to. How sore or how much injury you get in the process is not part of your body's plan. It just wants you to do something. So the more that we can train on these unexpected situations that come up, especially our core strength, the better off we're going to be, even if we're just taking the dog for a walk.
And don't forget, after you do these ab exercises, to stretch out. Especially if you have a really good ab workout, you're going to feel it right away. But just make sure, even if you feel great, to roll under your stomach and do a couple seal stretches where you're just pushing up, leaving your hips on the ground into a huge, really big arch, and it's just going to stretch your abs all the way down to your belly button. And then
even without doing abs, I was gonna say that's a huge one for someone that works a 9 to 5, because all of those ab muscles are very, very tight. Your hip muscles, crunched over. So that could be something that you even get in the habit of doing every day, regardless.
Yeah. Another tip that I like to do when I'm in that seal stretch is to look over your shoulder, because now you get a little twist and a little emphasis on the opposite side, and then hold that and then look over the other shoulder. You're going to get the same pull on those obliques that are generally hard to stretch. Another really good stretch that I like, especially with your spine, is lying on your back, and all you're going to do is have your arms straight out to the sides, lift up one knee, and pull it over to the opposite side. You're just going to add a little bit of a twist, and you'll feel it all throughout your spine. Just make sure that you stretch so that your abs are like I said, they're a key factor in every sort of lifting that you do. So you really don't want them to be sore the next day and, miss out on a workout.
Yeah, well, thanks for tuning in, guys. Hopefully you can implement some of these ab exercises in your next workout. We certainly don't recommend doing all 10 of them all at the same time. However, if you can, do it. Mainly just keeping that spine straight the entire time.
Yeah, for ab exercises, it's really good to just have them for time, so that you have to keep yourself. It doesn't matter how fast you go, especially for any timed workout. You want to make sure that you're just doing it for the amount of time that's allotted. So if you have 30 seconds where you're doing leg lifts, do those leg lifts for the whole time. No rest. It doesn't have to be super, super fast. Just try to maintain your form, and however many you get, that's your baseline for your next time that you do that workout.
Yep. Variety is the spice of life, and each and every single person is different. So do what is challenging and difficult for you, and then move on from there. Continually make things more challenging each and every day. That's the name of improvement. But thanks again for tuning in, guys. You can listen to this podcast on anywhere that you really listen to podcasts, including iTunes and Spotify. Feel free, if you want to like and subscribe. It would certainly help us out and allow us to bring more content like this to you guys. Link in the description to the article below. My name is Matt. This is Sarah, and we are Fit for the Task. Thanks again, guys, for tuning in. We'll see you in the next one.